Good evening and welcome to the Genesis Science Report. I'm David Rives, and coming up on tonight's show, just how powerful is the grip of a harpy eagle and what makes it one of the most efficient hunters in the animal kingdom. Doug Velting helps us break down the features that makes this bird a master of its environment. Later, a recent fossil fish discovery is rewriting the evolutionary timeline. Could this living fossil be more consistent with Genesis than with Darwin? Dr. Jerry Bergman joins us to unpack the findings. But first, in a world filled with wonders, this phenomena of static electricity often goes unnoticed, manifesting in everyday experiences, kind of like the small shock that you feel when you touch a doorknob after walking on a carpet, or the way balloons make your hair stand on end as they pull away from your face. I mean, these seemingly minor occurrences, while they can be amusing or shocking, reveal a deeper significance that extends way beyond mere physical interactions. Nothing is, of course, as intense as this exaggerated clip.
Huh. Oh. Whoa. Go. Oh. Whoa. Ah.
Still, static electricity not only ignites curiosity in science by revealing concepts of charge transfer and material interaction, but it also encourages reflection on the unseen forces that shape our lives, and it can even point to our spiritual journeys as well. Well, this year, groundbreaking discoveries reported in Science Daily and phys.org highlighted that the behavior of contact electrification, how materials generate static electricity upon contact, depends significantly on their contact history. For instance, reaching for linen from your closet is unlikely to result in a shock. However, retrieving fabric from your dryer after a history of being tumbled may very well deliver a small static shock. But why does the science behind static electricity even matter? Well, on a practical level, the results of this research have important implications, from improving electronic devices to making environments safer where static electricity can be a hazard. A lot of the equipment in this studio and in our server rooms very susceptible to static charge. But spiritually, static electricity can be a prime example of how invisible forces affect our daily lives. Romans says, "For the invisible things of God from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even His eternal power and Godhead." So the way creation and static electricity operates reveals God's design. Not convinced yet? Well, in 1980, a striking example of static electricity's power was witnessed at a 3M polypropylene tape plant. Reports from eyewitnesses tell us that as production progressed, static electricity accumulated on the surface of the tape, creating a phenomenon known as an invisible wall. So this electrostatic field became so strong that they said it started repelling nearby objects, making it nearly impossible for even a person to pass through. Much like the repulsion seen between magnets facing the same poles, the static charge created a force that demonstrated how an unseen yet powerful charge influenced the physical world. So Colossians also states that this truth when it tells us that all things were created by God in heaven and earth, both visible and invisible. While we may not see the force behind the small shocks of static electricity, we can draw parallels to invisible barriers created through our physical interactions. Just as a strong static buildup on the surface of polypropylene tape can repel nearby objects, our lives can also be influenced by unseen forces. The Bible illustrates God's influence as a guiding force, akin to how static electricity can either create barriers or foster connections. Throughout our journey from day to day, we may experience moments where we feel an invisible force nudging us in one direction or another, serving as a reminder of God's presence even when it's not visible. As we navigate through life, we can appreciate that our past experiences and choices contribute to our unique electrical charge. It shapes how we engage with the world around us and highlights God's invisible yet powerful influence in each and every one of your lives. I'm David Rives, and this is the Genesis Science Report. there's such a thing as a sure proof that God is real, that creation is true, and that we can believe the Bible.
We have a fixed amount of energy and matter in this universe. But if the universe had a beginning, naturally, everything had to have come from nothing.
Wow.
Which is the most immense violation of the first law that you could imagine.
On Wonders Without Number. Friends of Genesis Science Network, we started this channel to make an impact in the lives of both Christians and inquiring skeptics around the world. It has done that in unbelievable ways. Now, one of our viewers wrote, "I've been watching your channel for nearly a week now, and I would like you to know the blessing that it's been to me. I've never had the finances or the opportunity to attend a university, but I've been a believer for the last 37 years. Your channel has done more for my understanding of my faith than any book I've read save the Bible, and I feel like I'm finally able to attend the lecture classes I've always wanted to. Thank you so much for your ministry." I want to thank you for your generous support. GSN is no simple project and requires monthly commitments to keep it on the air. Please consider becoming a partner with us today. Just call 931-212-7990 or click Give on our website. We are making a difference. I'm David Rives, and you're watching the Genesis Science Network. Welcome back to the report. It's time to tackle a viewer question in our Genesis Science Q&A. This week's submission comes from Reddit, where one user asked, "It might seem like a dumb question, but I just don't see how you can think things go extinct, but new life can't emerge. I see this as a major flaw to the idea that all life is designed, because how did God just let his design flop? It would make more sense that he creates new species or just adaptations as he figures out what's best for that particular environment, which still doesn't make sense because he made that environment knowing that it change and make said species go extinct. Saying he created everything at once just makes extinction nothing but a flaw in his work." At Ethical Violation. Ethical Violation, why do you think extinction is a flaw in God's work? That's my question to you. I mean, when the largest dinosaurs went extinct, not all reptiles went extinct. When the dodo bird went extinct, not all flightless birds went extinct. When, let's just say, the African quagga went extinct, it was because of human hunters. But still, not all types of zebras went extinct. So just because mankind kills creatures until there are none left, or just because the environment changes and some species can't survive in it, doesn't mean that God has created anything with a flaw. He didn't create that actual creature. He created the original families of creatures with enough robust genetics to allow them to adapt to species that would fill this type of environment and that type of environment and everything that we see around us. And the species that adapted to environments that change, well, those, yeah, sometimes they do die out, allowing other species in that family to thrive. So the takeaway is that you don't need God to create every species. I mean, God created families of animals, kinds, as we read about in the biblical book of Genesis, with the ability to speciate, to adapt, and they've done that in great abundance, given the millions and millions of species that exist right now and that are still healthy. And so extinction of a species, we're not talking about of a family, extinction of a species doesn't mean that God's original design is a flop at all. Now, we love connecting with our viewers, so remember to keep those questions coming in. You can share them with us on social media or email comments at genesiссciencenetwork.com. Now, if you're looking for powerful teaching tools that bring creation science to life, I would encourage you to take a look at the Rocks Cry Out 3-volume video set. It's an incredible resource for your family, your classroom, or your church. This 9 DVD series total includes 18 professionally produced lessons that explore God's creation through the lens of Scripture and science. From the fossil record to flood geology, from dinosaurs to the age of the earth, every lesson is packed with engaging visuals, expert teaching, and biblical truth that points clearly to the Creator. Designed with middle school and high school students in mind, but equally compelling for adults. It's really good across the board. The Rocks Cry Out is perfect for homeschoolers, for small groups, or anyone who wants to dig deeper into the evidence that supports Genesis. Bruce Malone has patents to his name, and he tries to break things down in an easily understandable way. Every episode not only refutes evolutionary claims, but also equips viewers with a solid foundation in biblical creation, encouraging confidence in the authority of God's Word from the very first verse. You can order your set today by visiting the Creation Superstore or online at creationsuperstore.com. Now, it's time for the Kids Corner, and I'm grabbing something right now that I just think is absolutely beautiful. When you think of sea creatures that can swim, you probably picture fish, dolphins, maybe a sea turtle, right? But did you know that some shellfish can swim too? One of the most surprising swimmers in the ocean is the scallop, a sea creature that travels by snapping its shell open and shut like a pair of clapping hands. And that quick motion forces water out, and it pushes the scallop away from danger. So this is what a scallop shell looks like. And unlike clams, which usually have matching halves, scallops often have one flat side and one slightly more curved side. And look at these colors. Isn't that beautiful? From anywhere to kind of like this reddish color to even golden yellows, like this little bald scallop here, which is found in Portugal and places like that. These are incredible. They've not been painted. Those are 100% natural colors. And here's something even more amazing. Scallops actually have eyes, lots of them. Okay, so if I set this one down for a second, living on the edge of the scallop's soft body are more than 200 simple eyes, tiny blue dots that can sense light and movement. So when a shadow passes, let's just say overhead, well, the scallop knows something might be coming, and it can take off and move away. Even the shell's shape helps it move efficiently. It's curved like a fan, and it's textured for better lift in the water. Now, the Bible tells us in Job 12, ask the animals, and they will teach you, or the fish in the sea, they'll tell you. In His hand is the life of every creature and the breath of all mankind. So the next time that you spot a shell on the beach, remember, it might have once belonged to one of the most curious swimmers in the sea, a creature that reflects the wisdom and the creativity of its maker. After the break, we're looking at one of nature's most awe-inspiring raptors, the Harpy eagle. From its bone-crushing grip to its stunning design, Doug Velting helps us explore what this bird reveals about the God who made it. Next on the Genesis Science Report. The birds of the air, they were created by God in the beginning, but they are so diverse right now. He is being handed this magnificent creature.
This bird is designed.
Okay.
He is chock full of design. This doesn't just happen. He'll fly over your head and he'll land and you can't hear a thing.
Is that right?
It's incredible. God thought of everything when He made them.
On Wonders Without Number. I want to thank you for supporting GSN this year. Your support is helping us send this broadcast to millions of households around the globe. You know, in a society where the theories of Darwinian evolution are bombarding our youth via schools and universities and through peer pressure, we need to saturate the airwaves with the truth of real biblical science, and you are making this happen. Your one-time, monthly, or generous end-of-year tax-deductible love gift keeps this network streaming 24/7 at no cost to our viewers. Thank you for your support. I'm David Rives. Truly, the heavens declare the glory of God. Is there a biblical view of animal rights?
We've actually got a report that was in one of our British newspapers a little while back. Don't kill mosquitoes, let them take blood donation. Now here's a great example of being futile in your thinking, right?
Right.
At what point should we be looking after animals? At what point should we be treating animals as if they were humans? So it's a really popular topic.
On Wonders Without Number. Welcome back to the report. When you think of the most powerful birds on Earth, one species stands above the rest. Literally stands above the rest. With a wingspan stretching over 7 feet and talons as large as a grizzly bear's claws, the Harpy eagle is one of the most formidable raptors ever created. Our guest today, Doug Velting, recently wrote about this incredible bird for the Creation Club, one of the outreaches of our ministry, thecreationclub.com. And he joins us now from Jenison, Michigan, to talk about its remarkable features and design. Doug, let's start with the basics. Thanks for joining us, number one, and tell us just a little bit about what are the defining features of this particular eagle.
Well, thank you, David, for having me on again. The Harpy eagle is fantastic, and it's just an extremely large and powerful eagle. It is probably one of the most powerful eagles in the world, standing in at 36 to 40 inches. Wow. The eagle weighs 40 pounds, or not 40 pounds, 20 pounds. And like you said, it has a wingspan of 7 feet. So, but these eagles' wings are very broad because it helps them maneuver in the rainforest. So that's very cool. And they're found in the rainforests of Central and South America.
Well, okay, so Central and South America, again, that's an impressive size, and they're apex predators in their environment. So what do Harpy eagles typically hunt? And I mean, when you just look at those talons, I don't know if we have images of that, but that's almost scary. How does that give them an advantage?
Well, you're absolutely right. They are the top predator in the top and the middle canopy of the rainforest. And their main prey is sloths and monkeys, and they eat arboreal possums and porcupines and anteaters. And they and this is where God's design comes in. Okay, they have fantastic tools that they can do what they do. Okay, their feet are as big as my hand. Okay, and their talons are the largest of any eagle. Their talons are 4 to 5 inches long. Now you're right. You mentioned they're as big as a grizzly bear claws, but they're razor sharp, and their grip is immense. Okay, their grip strength is 530 pounds per square inch. Okay. Now, if you want to do a comparison to an average man's hand, my grip strength is about 100 pounds per square inch. Okay. But I'm a 175-pound guy and I have a 100-pound grip. Yeah. Okay. But you got a 20-pound bird having a grip strength that is 5 times greater than my grip strength. And that power comes from immense leg muscles, or the drumstick hidden underneath the feathers. Okay. Now, this grip strength is so powerful that it has been shown to attack and crush armadillos. Now, you know the armadillos, yeah. They have that protective leather type armor around them. But the Harpy eagle, they can attack and crush that armor and go through that armor.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty powerful. Now, one of the features of the Harpy eagle, it has these extremely unusual facial feathers that stand out when you compare it to other types of eagles, like, and even hawks and bald eagles and all these types of things. Why does it have these distinctive feathers, and is that actually a created design to help it survive, or is there something we should know about there?
Well, you raise a good point, because this is another part of God's design in helping the eagle find its prey. Okay, those feathers around its face can be lowered or raised at will, and those feathers raised up like that channel sound to the eagle's ears. all right? Because you're looking at hunting in a rainforest. Sometimes the prey is not visible, but sometimes you can hear it.
Yeah.
So those facial feathers are basically to help channel sound, much like an owl's facial disc, and help channel sound into the ears.
Wow. Okay. Okay, so it helps them actually direct the sound almost like little radars. Let's talk about their eyesight, Doug, for just a moment, because again, everybody knows that any type of a raptor typically has pretty good eyesight, but their eyesight, maybe it's legendary. It's said to be many times sharper than ours. How do they use that when they're spotting prey?
Right, you're absolutely right. Like a harpy eagle, like most eagles, will have very keen eyesight, and the harpy eagle has eyesight 8 times keener and better than our eyesight. So it's really very remarkable, and that helps them in their hunting. They have different hunting techniques. Now, sometimes the harpy eagle will fly above the canopy and look for an unwary monkey, okay, that can attack. Sometimes if it's an open canopy, okay, the harpy eagle will fly in the canopy and look for prey. But most often, okay, it's a perch hunter. What it'll do is basically find a perch in the middle or top canopy of the forest, and it will sit and it'll watch and it'll listen. Okay, if there's nothing around after a short while, it'll fly a short distance to another perch. Okay, it'll watch and it'll listen for prey.
And so, as it's listening, if it hears just the slightest movement or rustle down below, then it's going to use its eyesight to pinpoint any movement that it might see, say, oh, this is something that I can use as a food source, and then it'll swoop down and get it.
Exactly right.
Okay. Okay, tell me about its, like how does it live? What's its family life like? The young, how often do they breed? How many chicks do they normally raise at any given time? Kind of give me a little bit insight, because in your article on the Creation Club, you mentioned some of these things. Give us a breakdown.
All right. Okay. In May through June, they built a fantastically large nest. Okay. Being a large eagle, it's going to have a large nest. So the nests are like 5 feet across, 3 feet deep. All right. And basically what will happen is that they will lay probably about 2 eggs. All right. When one egg hatches, all right, the other one is ignored. They want to raise only 1 chick. All right. Because there's an immense amount of effort and energy going to that 1 chick, and they can have a better success rate raising only 1 chick. All right. So basically what will happen is if that chick dies for some reason, they will mate again and try again, but just concentrate on 1 chick. Now they fledge at about 3 to 4 months, all right. But the parents will feed that chick for another 8 to 10 months until it becomes mature. So it takes a while for that chick to fully mature to a point where it can hunt on its own. So because of that, they only raise 1 chick every 2 or 3 years.
How about that? Doug Velting, thank you so much for being on to share with us, and thank you so much for authoring that article. It's an incredible article.
Well, thank you for having me on, David.
Yes, sir. The Harpy Eagle is a striking example of strength and beauty, but also of intentional design woven into creation. If you want to dig deeper, I would encourage you, read Doug's full article, The Magnificent Harpy Eagle, which is available on the Creation Club website. Now it's time to take a quick break, but we're going to be right back with a whole lot more on the Genesis Science Report. Limestone, we see it all around the world, but what is it exactly and how did it get here?
But let's delve a little bit into limestone. This was found by our good friend John Mackay, our mutual friend John Mackay, a few years back, right? He was driving through the Peak District and he shouted, "Stop!" And he said, "I've seen limestone." And the driver was like, "We're in the middle of the Peak District, it's all limestone around here." No, I found some special limestone.
On Wonders Without Number.
Join us at the Wonder Center and Science Museum for this month's Unwrapped event. where we feature expert speakers presenting scientific and biblical discoveries.
It pays to learn history, folks.
We cannot create an aircraft even close to what these birds can do.
This changes the way we do biology.
Discounted tickets are available for an after-hours adventure, including museum admission with kids' hands-on activities, a planetarium movie, Tesla experience, and pre-show entertainment. Perfect for the whole family.
What you believe about the history of the world is going to affect the way that you study the world today.
You see a mathematical order here. You see the orthogonal lines. You see the repeating patterns.
You don't understand what it takes to make a cell. That's serious engineering.
Come be inspired as you learn. The evening presentation is free, but seating is extremely limited, so RSVP immediately at wondercenter.org.
Squids in limestone in the middle of the Grand Canyon.
But the big problem is, how did those fossils get deposited in the middle of a 7-foot thick layer? According to the narrative, is something like 36 million years in duration. I'm replacing the narrative with some type of rapid smothering event.
On Wonders Without Number. We are back, and it's time to hear from you, our viewers. Our first viewer voices submission tonight comes from Biblical Faith on YouTube. They say, "Thank you, David Rives, for sharing wonderful truths of the Bible and true science. May God bless your ministry." Thank you at Biblical Faith. When you say, "and true science," that kind of resonates, because if we read the Bible, it says that we should be aware of science falsely so-called, right? So there is a difference between false science, or things that are called science but are really the opinion of scientists, and true science, which always backs up God's Word. Our second testimonial comes from Michelle, who had this to say after visiting the Wonder Center. "We had so much fun at the Wonder Center. The planetarium and the Tesla coil were amazing. All the displays are so informative. The team that was working was so helpful and friendly. Highly recommend stopping in and taking all that this museum has to offer. You will be glad you did." Thank you, Michelle, for that. It's interesting. When we say it's a great place for anyone, we are actually getting people from not just out of state, out of country, people from different countries coming in. We had someone from near Paris the other day, somewhere in France, and we've had professors from Bolivia, and we've had, in a few weeks, we're going to have guests from the UK who are adjunct professors and other experts coming in. So it is a place in Tennessee that you might say, well, hey, I live in Washington State. No, I live in Idaho. Oh, I live in Florida. Wherever you're at, this will be a place that you can come in and really be impacted. And if you have been impacted by the work that our ministry has been doing, I want to hear from you. So connect with us on social media or email comments at genesissciencenetwork.com. Now it's time to take the next 60 seconds to explore God's creation on this week's Genesis Science Minute. And if these daily educational spots aren't airing on your local Christian radio station, would you reach out to them and copy us in on the email? We will send it to any radio station daily so that they can air it. And it's another thing that we do absolutely free to the station and free to the listener. So just call or email your local station and tell them that they can join 200 others who air this audio version of the daily 60-second feature every single day. All they have to do is reach out to us, comments at genesissciencenetwork.com, and say, hey, we want to carry Genesis Science Minute, the audio version, and we will send them the link. So let's spend 60 seconds and take a look at this week's Genesis Science Minute right now. Did your family get enough protein for breakfast? Proverbs tells us to have goat's milk enough for the food of thy household. High-quality protein is needed for the maintenance and nourishment of your household. Protein quality is dependent on whether it contains essential amino acids in sufficient quantities, because essential amino acids are the building blocks of protein. There are 22 amino acids, and 9 of them are considered to be essential, and these 9 are mostly richly found in animal proteins, such as eggs, fish, dairy, and meat. So remember, when God gives instructions about how to nourish our family, He knew what He was talking about. He is the Creator. I'm David Rives. Truly, the heavens declare the glory of God.
For more information, visit David Rives Ministries at davidrives.com. David, RIVES.com.
And now it's time to jump into this week's Ministry Report. One of our favorite returning guests, Dr. Brian Thomas from the Institute for Creation Research, recently joined me for a thought-provoking episode of Wonders Without Number. In our latest sit-down, we explore the idea of sure proofs, evidence from physics, from biology, from language, that powerfully points to a creator. Dr. Thomas made a compelling case that the universe not only had a beginning, but that its design demands an intelligent source. Here's a short clip from that episode right now.
But one way to bring the supernatural back in is to think about this question: did the universe have a beginning?
Okay.
And if we ask a secularist, did the universe have a beginning, then they've got some options.
Okay.
Option A is yes. Option B might be
no.
No. But if in that worldview, there's no God.
Okay.
Okay. So did the universe have a beginning? If they say yes, then that means we are having to violate the first and most well-established of all the laws of physics, specifically the first law of thermodynamics. And it says matter and energy are never created nor destroyed.
Okay.
So in other words, you're driving your car and new universes don't just pop up, despite what the comic book movies show. New universes, new matter doesn't just pop up in front of us,
right.
or dip out, as the kids say. That doesn't happen. It says we have a fixed amount of energy and matter in this universe.
Okay.
But if the universe had a beginning, naturally, nature only,
yes,
then what you have to propose is that there wasn't just a small violation of the first law
of thermodynamics.
Everything had to have come from nothing.
Wow.
Which is the most immense violation of the first law that you could imagine.
Okay.
And so, well, we better go with the other option. What if it's no? Did the universe have a beginning? Well, I better go with no. Except now, if a universe without a beginning is what? It's an eternal universe.
Right.
And that means the stars would have burnt out an eternity ago.
Okay.
The suns would be cold. The whole universe would be old, cold, and dead. We wouldn't be here. But the stars are still burning.
Not only do these episodes air on Genesis Science Network, not only do they air on the NRB network, on DirecTV and other stations all over the world, including every week on the largest cable provider in Israel. But if you want to watch this full episode on demand, you can find it by visiting creationsuperstore.com. We have it available as a digital download. And whether you're a homeschool family, a church leader, or just someone hungry for the truth, these resources, there are over 100 episodes there ready for you to download on demand. They're packed with faith-building content to strengthen your walk and equip you to share the evidence for biblical creation. Now, the prayers and generosity of our viewers continues to make all of this possible, and your monthly support helps ensure that we can continue to do these things, to share the wonders of God's creation and the gospel with people all over the world. And I invite you to partner with us in ministry today by making a tax-deductible contribution. You can visit our website or call 931-212-7990 to donate and learn more about this important work. It's one of the lightest elements in the universe, but it's weighing down evolutionary timelines. On this week's Heavens Declare, we want to take a closer look at helium and what it tells us about the age of the Earth. Let's take a look right now. The foundation for evolutionary ideas about the past is millions of years. But without the millions of years, there's no way that evolution has taken place. You see, most people just take it for granted that the Earth is millions and billions of years old, but the evidence points us in an entirely different direction. Let me give you one of my favorite examples. I call it way too much helium.
You see, many of the elements found in rocks are radioactive and they decay over time. Two of these elements are uranium and thorium. When they decay, they produce lots of helium as a byproduct. Now, helium is a very slippery gas and it doesn't bond with any other element, so it rapidly diffuses into the atmosphere. Now, scientists in New Mexico were drilling into Precambrian rocks. These are the basement rocks of the Earth, and they're thought by many to be 1.5 billion years old, a thought supposedly confirmed by radiometric dating. But much to the surprise of these researchers, these supposedly old rocks contained large amounts of helium. Over 50% of the helium that was produced was still there. Now, these rocks are deep in the Earth, and therefore they're hotter than other rocks. So the hotter the rock, the faster the helium escapes. So why are these rocks filled with helium? Now, some atheistic and evolutionary researchers have tried to discredit the finding or explain it away, but every attempt has fallen short. The evidence that these rocks can't be over 1 billion years old just won't go away. A maximum age based on helium dating is a mere 100,000 years. Now, that's just a blink in the evolutionary timescale. Yet these rocks are supposedly some of Earth's oldest. Now, interestingly, based on current helium diffusion rates, the average age of these rocks is a mere 6,000 years old. Does that number sound familiar? That's the age of the Earth that we get when we start with God's Word. These Precambrian rocks are pre-flood rocks from the time of creation. So according to the Bible, they're roughly 6,000 years old. And this is exactly what the observational evidence suggests. You know, that's just one more scientific reason that you shouldn't believe in molecules to man evolution. It takes a lot of faith. I'm David Rives. Truly, the heavens declare the glory of God.
Might as well have a little bit of fun with it sometimes. Now, after the break, we are taking a look at an ancient fish that refuses to fit the evolutionary script. Dr. Jerry Bergman will be joining us to explore why these living fossils keep challenging textbook timelines and what that actually means for the creation versus evolution debate. So don't go anywhere. Hi, I'm David Rives, and I'm inviting you to visit the Creation Superstore, the largest origins-related store in the world. Not only will you find every book and video title on creation versus evolution, science, but also every resource that teaches us about our origin and how it all takes us back to Genesis, a grand designer, the God of the Bible, and ultimately, yes, the gospel message. Documentaries your family can trust, fossils, teaching videos, children's books, church Bible studies, homeschool supplements, and expert scientific literature. If you can't find a title, call us up and we'll add it. Normally, you'd have to visit dozens of sites to gain access to all of the titles that are out there, and then you would be at a loss to whether the book or video was worth the purchase. But not here. We've curated the best of the best into top 10 lists. And on some of my favorite products, you'll find the Rives rating, where I help guide you on the best resources available for not only those who love history, biblical studies, and creation science, but also great products at the layman level, easy to understand for those who are learning or want their children and grandchildren to be exposed to a biblical worldview. Just look for the Rives rating to find my personal favorites. Use the search bar to look up a topic or follow our menu to sort by ministry, subject, or author. Give us a call at 931-212-7990 as you're browsing. We have ministry volunteers who will do their best to assist you at all hours of the day and even help you place your order. Yes, a real person. Get ready for a secure shopping experience brought to you by the leaders of creation-based research. Your purchase goes towards ministry outreach and also supports the authors and organizations who publish the material, most of whom are personal friends and colleagues of mine. I'm David Rives. Truly, the heavens declare the glory of God. And welcome back to the report. Sometimes the most powerful challenges to evolutionary theory don't come from new discoveries, but from living creatures that we've known about for a long time. Take, for example, the coelacanth. This deep-sea fish was once thought to have gone extinct with the dinosaurs, only to be found alive and well in 1938. Evolutionary textbooks had called it a transitional form, supposedly bridging the gap between fish and land animal, but new research is showing just how wrong many of these claims have been. To help us unpack this latest study and what it means for evolutionary theory, we're joined by Dr. Jerry Bergman, a prolific author and creation researcher who has written extensively on science and faith. Jerry, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Let's start with the basics. What is the story of the coelacanth, and why has it played such a big role in not only the evolutionary narrative, but also as creationists, we found it very curious that they would have called this thing going extinct 66 million years ago until we found it swimming.
It's important for a number of reasons. One major reason is it was seen as a living fossil, and so it helped us understand a lot about the past. Ironically, now this is an area I have a lot of interest in. I've done a book on fossils, fossil forensics to be specific, and it's interesting that the three most important life forms, horses, whales, and humans, was seen as the best fossil record of these three creatures. In other words, the fossil record of all other creatures is inferior. And all three of those I looked at in a large detail, and I found indeed the fossil record of the horses is such where all we have is the first animal was a horse, and they became larger. An example would be dogs. All dogs we know came from a wolf. Well, that's not evolution as often claimed. That basically is variation within the Genesis kind. Yeah. Humans, of course, I've done a lot of work on that as well. And now it's pretty clear that we have no really valid evolutionary record for humans. The same thing is true with whales. So what's left? What's left is basically, we're talking about living fossils. From my research and understanding, it seems that every life form we have today is, in many ways, a living fossil. Some became extinct, they're not with us, but on the other hand, there's not one really good example of a fossil record showing clear evidence of evolution. And that's very, very clear. And I've challenged evolutionists to this, and they have yet to give me an example, besides whales, humans, and horses, of course. Yeah. And this coelacanth is important because that was seen as an animal that is extinct, wasn't around anymore. It was seen as an important fossil transition. And a recent study done, which basically showed that we have a lot of misunderstanding about this so-called transition. And new research, I find it interesting that about 13% of all skeleton and muscle diagrams were wrong.
Yeah.
13% were correct only, the rest was wrong. And so re-evaluation has shown quite clearly that a lot of the assumptions we had about this creature are simply wrong. And over, I see this in the literature, we have to now rewrite the textbooks. Well, again, with a coelacanth, the research that was done recently, we have to, again, rewrite the textbooks.
And that's what we have to do time and time again, especially when you start with these Darwinian evolutionary narratives and you're trying to fit it comfortably within some grouping of fish, whether it's lobe-fin fish or whether it's all these different types of creatures. And then they're saying, well, wait a second, 90% of what we thought we knew, we didn't really know. The muscle systems work completely different. What about the bias within the evolutionary community? Do you think that we would have potentially figured this out a long time ago if we weren't trying to neatly fit it into a particular category of evolution?
That's a good point. In science, there is what they call glasses, and there is evolutionary glasses, and they see the world through those glasses. And then there is basically a tendency to, well, like glasses do, they distort things. Now, my glasses hopefully help me see better, but unfortunately, the evolutionary glasses allow them or cause them to miss the reality that's there because they see what they want to see that in essence supports the evolutionary worldview. And this is just one of many, many examples.
Absolutely.
Where they see, not deliberately necessarily, but they really see the world through those glasses, and that distorts the world, and it's hard to see the world without those glasses. And what they need to do is take the glasses off and see the world for what it really is.
Well, you know, this is sort of a layman's retelling of this from modern engineering marvels. But they're saying, well, textbooks of anatomy and evolution models have perpetuated mistakes for over 7 decades on this. This discovery upends the understanding of feeding and breathing mechanics in ancient vertebrates. The findings extend far beyond the coelacanth. All of these things are not surprising to us because we're not trying to group them 66 million years ago. We're not trying to group them as some evolutionary descendants of something. So finally, from a creation perspective, how does the coelacanth remind us that God's design endures even when our scientific methods sometimes fail?
This is a good point, namely that when we look at the reality out there, when we look at, in this case, this animal, and this is a strange animal, which in many ways has captivated scientists because it is so different from all the other animals that we know. It's similarities, of course, but major differences. And so therefore, we see this as another example of God's creation of a life form that can actually do really, really well in the very deep part of the water, which is why they didn't know about this earlier, because it lives in a very deep part of the water, doesn't come up to the surface area very often. And therefore, just variety that we see in the natural world.
Yeah, absolutely. Shouldn't that remind us that just because we don't find something doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It means that we haven't caught up in science to those discoveries. Dr. Jerry Bergman, thank you so much for helping us shed light on this topic. And I hope that everyone and the audiences who are watching realize that the coelacanth is not a missing link. You can even find it in the American Museum of Natural History, preserved, a living one. It's teaching us a lot about ocean life and also about our origins, which is basically a living testimony to the stability of God's creation and the limits of this evolutionary storytelling. Before we go, I want to mention a book of Dr. Bergman co-edited that dives even deeper into this kind of journey, and it's called Transformed by the Evidence. It features the personal stories of scientists, professors, and other professionals who once wrestled with the claims of evolution, but then found that the evidence pointed in a very different direction. Their testimonies are thoughtful, honest, and often surprising, and they show that belief in creation is not about rejecting science, it's actually following science where it leads. You can find your copy of Transformed by the Evidence at creationsuperstore.com. From living fossils to artifacts, discoveries keep pointing us back to the events that are recorded in Genesis. And one of the most pivotal of those was the Tower of Babel. I mean, it was the moment when God basically scattered mankind and divided languages. So for many people, the Tower of Babel is just this distant story from the early pages of Scripture, symbolic at best. But what if real-world evidence pointed back to that moment in history as the key to unlocking and understanding global civilization itself? Architecture, artifacts, and traditions found all over the world, all tracing back to a common origin. Vance Nelson is a researcher, field explorer, and author of the Untold Secrets of Planet Earth series. His latest book, Banished from Babel, uncovers powerful clues that supports the biblical account of dispersion, and it challenges the secular view of how civilization began. He's traveled to over 10 countries, cataloged carvings, fossils, ancient sites all over, steely inscriptions. He's joining us now from Alberta, Canada. Vance, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
It is great to have you on.
Yeah, I think. So anyway, I think we have a bit of a delay, but that's okay. We'll manage.
That is perfectly fine. We will work around that. Before we dive into Babel specifically, I want to talk about your process, because your books, which are absolutely gorgeous, by the way, I mean, you do a tremendous job at them, whether it's flood fossils or dire dragons that many people have grown to love over the last few years. The next in the series, Banished from Babel, you fill these books with firsthand photography, with your research. How do you go about doing something of this magnitude?
Yeah, David, basically, whether it's Dire Dragons or which book it is, I start with the Bible.
Yeah.
What does the Bible say? So we're talking about dinosaurs, for example. What does the Bible say about dinosaurs and humans? And we find out that, hey, dinosaurs must have been made alongside people on day number 6. If that's true, what would we expect to find in the real world based on what the Bible says? And so I think about that. What would we expect to find? Well, we might expect to find evidence that people and dinosaurs intermingled, if you will, and evidence that they saw them, maybe depictions. And so I would expect somewhere on the face of the planet that we find depictions made by humans, okay, not in the zoo, made by the monkey, showing you how close we are to them, but all over the world. And so then I go out and look, what do we actually find? Do we find evidence that fits with what the Bible actually says? And so it's the same thing with the Tower of Babel. We have all the people in one place, they scatter from there. If that's true, what would we expect to find? Well, we might expect to find isolated people groups, so-called isolated people groups in cultures all around the world that have similar technologies, similar belief systems, similar technologies. And these are things that could not be invented multiple times. They're usually unique, peculiar, etc.
And that's one of the things that I really appreciate here is you, for instance, I don't know if the camera can pick this up, but you actually have these maps throughout the book where you show how these cultures around the world have all picked up on these commonalities, on these themes, that means that they probably all got it from a single source at some point. And again, the most logical explanation is the Babel event. Now, let's talk location for just a second. You think it's actually possible to ever identify a real world site and figure out where the Tower of Babel stood?
Well, if we take a look at the map that I provided there, the Bible says that they entered the land of Shinar. And so that is the southern half of that pink map on there. And so we know that for sure, that it's in that region. But even beyond that, in Genesis chapter 10 and Genesis chapter 11, we have Babel mentioned in Genesis chapter 10 and Genesis chapter 11, Babel. And most people are unaware that that's actually not a translation, it's a transliteration directly from the Hebrew. And so we're using English letters to make the sounds of the actual Hebrew word. And so we find the word Babel or Babel in Hebrew 262 times in the Old Testament. And 260 of those times it's actually translated. And it comes through the Greek, and long story short, but it comes through the Greek, and it's translated in most English Bibles as Babylon, which comes from Babylon in the Greek. And so the Bible is actually explicit. If we were to translate those words, for example, in Genesis chapter 11, it would be the Tower of Babylon. Okay. And so in Genesis chapter 11, we see a particular context. It talks about a city and a tower, a city and a tower, a city and a tower 3 times. And so it's not just an isolated tower, it was built in conjunction with a specific city, and that specific city is in Hebrew Babel, which is translated as Babylon, so the city of Babylon.
Okay, so we do actually have this information as long as we study and research it. Now, again, one of the biggest sections of the book looks at global cultures and patterns. Very briefly, give me an overview. What types of patterns do we see, whether it was like physical deformation of different body parts or something like that?
Yeah, so basically I have 12 different lines of evidence. So it's technology, it's practices, it's basically different types of architecture. Now, I could have had 50, but I probably wouldn't finish the book yet, and nobody would want to buy a book that long. So why don't we start with actually a good friend of mine, John Mackay from Australia. Many, many years ago, this was when VHS tapes that was in, and I watched one of his videos, and he's talking about boomerangs in Australia and boomerangs in the United States. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I continued that study on boomerangs. And basically, so here we have the Australian Aboriginals, Australian first settlers, And most people are, hey, boomerangs, if you ask them, where did boomerangs come from? They say, they come from Australia. Did they originate in Australia? It actually looks like they probably originated as far as the people of Australia from India. Here we have Hopi peoples of the United States, and they made boomerangs. Now, we should distinguish that technically a boomerang returns. And these are throwing sticks. They're made by the same airfoil design like you see on an airplane wing, and they were used for hunting and various different things, and battle as well.
But we find these same basic types of devices.
Yeah, so throwing sticks, boomerangs is a simple way to talk about them. And so here we have Hopi people. And so this would be part of Northern America. And the first one we looked at would be the region of Oceania, which includes Australia. And so all over the world, and those are just a couple of the examples, but there are other examples as well. We find them in India, and we can go all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia, where we have an image of Gilgamesh, and he's holding a throwing stick. And so you can actually trace this back to ancient Mesopotamia, where the Tower of Babel was built.
Yeah, that is incredible. And again, these are things that we probably need to discuss in more detail, because I want to have you back and let's do a sequel to this where we go through several more lines of evidence. But the big picture is that your research on Banished from Babel is pointing us right back to the validity of God's Word, that there was this inciting event where the world was divided. Vance Nelson, thank you so much for joining us today. This book is called Banished from Babel. It's part of the Untold Secrets of Planet Earth series, and it's one of the most visual, well-researched explorations of ancient history through a biblical lens. You can find it by going to the Creation Superstore, creationsuperstore.com. It is brand new. It is revolutionary. You have to pick up a copy for your entire family and pick up another copy to share with friends. That's it for today. I want to thank you for joining us on the Genesis Science Report. And until next week, I want to remind you to keep looking up. I'm David Rives. Truly, the heavens declare the glory of God.